And welcome to the Skift India Travel podcast. I'm Payton, Skift's Asia editor, and today again, I'm here with my colleague Bulbul Dhawan, our India reporter, to talk about the latest happenings in India's travel, tourism, and hospitality sector. Some of the topics that we will be discussing are the Ixigo and the Leela IPOs, Skyscanner's India Insights, Indigo's hotel booking option, and of course, India getting new ministers for tourism and aviation. Before we go to other topics this week, let's go and revisit the Ixigo IPO that went live last week. Of course, Bulbul and I have talked about it earlier as well. So the investors applied for about 98 times the number of shares in Ixigo's initial public offering in the 3 days that it was open. Now, just to put that into perspective, the last travel IPO that launched last month in May, TBO Tech, was oversubscribed 86 times. Beauty products seller Nykaa, which was considered a bumper IPO when it launched in October 2021, was oversubscribed over 82 times. And the other successful listing was the food delivery app Zomato's IPO, and that was oversubscribed about 38 times. So, yes, Ixigo's IPO being oversubscribed 98 times is no mean feat. And the demand was strong across all types of investors, whether it was non-institutional, retail, or qualified institutional buyers. Now, the IPO listing is tentatively scheduled for June 18th. Now, the fact that this is an even stronger IPO than TBO's IPO last month, the performance, Bulbul, I wanted you to, since we've been talking about the TBO IPO as well as the IPO and other IPOs in general. What's your take on what's happening?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that it's all about the timing. So it's all about. So Ixigo had scheduled their IPO initially for 2021, had gotten the regulatory approval, and then they just did not go through with it because the Ixigo chairman, in an interview with Skift, I think with you, in fact, did say that they pushed or they held off on the IPO because back in 2022 most tech companies were trading below their IPO price. So that was the reason for not listing their IPO back then. And so then in mid February this year they decided to go at it again, and then because they had posted 2 consecutive years of profitability, and as we can see, the timing it worked to perfection for, as I mean, of course, as far as the demand for IPO is concerned, we still have to see what will happen at the bourses. But so far, I think the company has had a stellar performance. So I think the biggest takeaway for me from be it TBO or be it Ixigo or back then Nykaa or Zomato, it's all about the timing.
Correct. And I think, if Alok or Rajneesh is listening, I think great call, guys. I mean, like, the fact that you did not launch an IPO when you got an approval in 2021 and then decided to launch it at this time and to get, a reception of this sort, and I would definitely say that was a great call. And Bulbul, since we are already talking about IPOs, of course, we've been talking about it for quite some time now because it seems like
Yeah.
we were talking about Ixigo, then the fact that Oyo had paused as IPO. So
Mm-hmm.
last week we also covered the fact that there are reports that Leela Hotels, Palaces, Hotels and Resorts is also looking to make an entry into the public market and is seeking a valuation of approximately $2.5 billion in its upcoming IPO. Now, from what we've read, the IPO is expected to raise around $377 million. And it's being
Hmm.
said that this would make it the largest IPO in the history of India's hospitality sector. Now, I think Ankur Gupta, who is the managing partner at Brookfield Asset Management, he had, in an interview, in a TV interview, hinted at an imminent IPO. When I was listening to the interview, and he said that they would want to launch an IPO sooner than later.
Yeah.
And of course, it's also significant to understand that the way. Uh, Leela was sold off to Brookfield, and
Hmm.
then the Leela Bombay is already listed.
Yeah.
Is already listed. So these will be the other Leelas that Brookfield has taken over.
Hmm.
Since you cover hospitality, in depth, what do you make of a Leela IPO happening, and of course, and Brookfield looks is very bullish about India.
Yeah, I think it's not just Brookfield. It's pretty much every major global hotel chain, be it Marriott, Accor, Hyatt, Hilton, IHG. They're all looking at India very positively because there is an upswing in the entire sector. We know from an HVS report that there is an unprecedented revenue growth in the industry, which is leading to a very robust stock market performance of listed hotel companies.
Mhm.
In early 2024 itself, we have seen an 8.5% increase in average daily rates in hotels, and then an 11.4% rise in revenue per available room. So these are all metrics that are indicating towards a very strong growth in the industry. And so because of this, and considering the fact that when that Brookfield had taken over the assets of Leela during the through the bankruptcy proceedings, and then it led to the company expanding from 8 to 15 hotels, and then it also has plans for nearly 20 properties in India.
Mhm.
So uh, it is growing that brand because in the world, I mean, the company itself said that they are working to make Leela a globally recognized Indian luxury brand. So, considering the growth that is currently going on in India, in terms of the performance, the bullish view that every hotel chain is taking for India, I think it makes sense for Brookfield to um, get the company listed publicly to fund its requirements. Now that there is a clear growth path for Leela.
Yeah, and they have also been talking about these high-end luxury rentals as well, right? And which seems
Hmm.
to be doing very well. And there's a project that's coming up in Mumbai next to the
Yeah,
airport.
yeah.
Ankur Gupta had said that this would serve as a prototype for future developments. So, of
Hmm.
course, and like you said, exciting times to be in India for hospitality sector. We've heard the CEOs of Accor, Marriott, Hyatt, Hilton, and IHG, talk about how India is a key market for future growth. So yes, I
Hmm.
mean, like a great time to be in India if you are in the travel or any sector for that matter.
Yeah, because we're very underpenetrated.
Bulbul, let's move on to Skyscanner. The Skyscanner's vice president, Hugh Atkin, was in India recently, and you met him, and
Mhm.
he's spoken very positively about the India market. The meta search engine has seen a substantial growth in the India market over the last few years. And you mentioned in your interview
Mhm.
that India has moved up among its top five markets, Skyscanner's top five market,
Yeah.
and international searches in India have increased, domestic searches have surged, and then Hugh also gave you several reasons for why he thinks India is poised for growth. Now, of course, you did an interview based on your meeting with him, but can you also share, about some of the things that sometimes it might not be possible to write everything down in an interview, but can you also share what are the other
Yeah.
things that he may have said to you, from which you could understand that he is again he's looking at India in a very positive manner. He and of course Skyscanner as well.
Yeah, so what you said was basically that there are several factors that are pointing towards a very positive growth for India. There is a significant surge in travel activity, as is also experienced by their company, and then there is a growing middle class. Of course, everyone in the world is banking on the growing middle class in India, and the growing middle class is leading to an increased travel expenditure because the people that are now in power, now majority are people with higher spending power, and they want to they want to spend on travel experiences. So increased growing middle class and increased travel expenditure, and of course more accessible visa policies, with different countries coming up with easier norms for Indians, temporarily or permanently. It keeps changing, but yeah, they're looking at India as a source market. So these things are, of course, pointing towards India being being at a very positive position to support the travel industry globally. And then, of course, another very positive thing is, in his words, increasingly strong and confident airlines in India. We know Air India is going through a transformation as it prepares for its merger with Vistara. Indigo has Air India and Indigo have placed huge orders for aircraft to upgrade their fleet and to get more aircraft to expand their operations. And and Akasa, of course, it's a new airline, but it's working to expand its fleet. So there is a strong supply also coming in for the India market. So all of these factors are coming together to work to position India at a very good place for the global travel industry, is basically what he
Mhm.
said.
Of course, great that you mentioned the airlines because I was going to
Hmm.
talk about Indigo, which has last week introduced a hotel booking option, on its website
Yeah,
and the app. Indigo has partnered with a marketing partner of the Expedia Group to develop and manage the hotel platform, and it is going to get integrated with the flight platform, and allowing the customers access to Expedia's hotel portfolio. Now, Indigo said that the aim
hmm,
of the integrated service is to allow passengers a one-step solution, which is something that
hmm,
every app now wants, so that to develop a
yeah,
stickiness, so that people do not go on to other websites or apps. And we know for sure that Indigo is
hmm,
not the first airline to provide a service like
yeah,
this, because Vistara already has a
yes,
hotel booking platform, which is in conjunction with booking.com. And
yeah,
there is also Spice Vacations that SpiceJet has, which
yeah,
allows people to book hotels, flights. Of course, we know that the classic example would be AirAsia, because in AirAsia you not don't just find AirAsia's flights, but you also find flights of other of other airlines, of course, and that is Tony Fernandez's dream of developing AirAsia into a super app, right? um, I don't see
hmm.
that happening in India anytime soon, but this is significant for Indigo, right?
It is because I think Indigo is working very hard to expand its operations rapidly, be it in terms of its offerings on the airline side or on the customer side, in varying its offerings, like the hotel booking platform. And like you said, Indigo is not the first one to do it, so it has precedence of this being done by other airlines. So it's just enough for it to not really step out of the mold and do something completely unthinkable, but just enough for it to test the waters and see what the response would be like. But my only concern when it comes to this is that, it is looking for a one step solution. And but India has a user base that moves towards OTAs, because they're looking for the most price conscious option and deals that work best for it. So I'm just wondering if this will work. But for Indigo, I think it seems like a step where they're just testing the waters and seeing what all they can um, do, what all they can experiment with, what all they can get into to create, to diversify their offerings to the
Yeah,
customers, I
interesting that
think.
you mentioned about the value for money thing, about people, of course,
Mhm.
price conscious. Indians are price conscious. But that is why I think Indigo, at the very beginning itself, has announced that, people who book through their platform would avail
Yeah.
exclusive discounts. I think that's the word that was there, was
Yeah.
discount. And even Club Vistara,
Yes.
when you
It
book
was.
through the Club Vistara, the Vistara loyalty program, you get
Yeah.
about for every 100 rupees spent, you get about
100 rupees.
five Club Vistara reward points. So I think
Yeah.
even these airlines do understand the price sensitiveness of Indian customers, and that is why they are
Hmm.
making sure that they are not behind in that race as well, because what the word discount is a huge crowd puller.
Yeah. It sticks.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah,
So
go ahead, you were saying something.
So yeah, I mean, I think it is that that they're looking at offering, like Indigo specifically is looking at offering discounts, which is yes, I think yes, that is one way, because people may not be very receptive towards reward points, but when they say discounts, people are like, yes, discount, we will go for it. So I think yes, that's one way that Indigo is trying to make sure that people come to its website and stick to its website for booking things other than just
Yeah, and
flights.
then they
So
realize
it'll
that
be
now
interesting to see how
people
it will
are,
react to it.
because earlier I think there is a lot of leisure traveling happening as well. If you remember,
Hmm.
travel earlier was very need based. You either you were either traveling for
Yeah,
work, or you were traveling to visit a relative.
for that
Yeah,
one
or
vacation.
visit a relative, and the vacations were also usually at a relative's place. It was always
Yes,
if you're going on a vacation, it had to be somewhere, whether it's your grandmother's house or your aunt is there, maternal aunt, paternal aunt, maternal uncle, paternal uncle's house. So because so that you will
that
travel to some place, but you will ensure that there is a
yes,
relative's house waiting for you. So hotels.
yeah, because staying at hotels was sort of frowned
Yeah,
upon,
and also the fact that it was
somewhat.
expensive, right? I mean, like, staying in a hotel would be
Yes, of
considered an
course.
added expense, and if
Yeah.
a family of four or a family of six are traveling, that would mean a lot. But now I guess
Oh yeah.
it's completely changed, and post COVID it has changed more. So even if you have relatives in the
Yeah.
in the city, you would prefer to stay at a hotel.
You would want to stay in a
Yes,
hotel.
exactly.
Yes.
uh, and of course, lastly, the big post-election news. India's got a new tourism minister and a new aviation minister.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Gajendra Singh Shekhawat is the new Indian tourism minister in the newly formed
Mm-hmm.
NDA government, headed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And
Yes.
Rapu Ram Mohan Naidu has been named the new Minister of Civil Aviation, and he comes
Hmm.
after Jyotiraditya Scindia, who has been very vocal as an aviation minister, and he's talked a
Yeah.
lot about he's had big dreams for the Indian aviation sector, and he was the one who talked about developing
Yes.
India into a hub, and not and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that the traffic is not diverted to other destinations. And
Yes.
but then of course, one thing that has been there is that, of course, if everyone is looking at the new tourism and the aviation minister for what they are going to do next. And the aviation minister recently also spoke about his 100-day plan, and he said that he wants to bring airfares down. Now, that might be good news for
Yes.
the passengers, but I don't know how the airlines are going to respond to that. But because this is, like, airlines are just beginning to show some profit. And then
Yeah.
when it comes to tourism, of course, we know that India has had a 97% reduction in overseas tourism promotion as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you must be talking to people, what are their sentiments like now with the new tourism and an aviation minister coming?
I think it is a bit early for anyone to have any strong foundation for any sort of feelings. But so far, um, they seem a bit, I mean, they seem a bit positive because the tourism and aviation policies that were going on for the past decade are likely to continue with the same government being in power. So they're expecting for maybe more positive changes, likely an increase in the budget, or just, and the industry has, of course, like the hotel industry specifically has been rallying for for an industry status for itself for a really long time. So that always continues to be one of the things that they look for. But I think so far the sentiment is more or less positive, because if we see over the past 10 years, even despite the, I mean, there is a reduction in the budget, overseas tourism promotion budget this year. There was one in the interim budget that came out in February, but then India has also worked on destination development, especially when it comes to domestic tourism. It has been promoting domestic tourism quite extensively, and there is a significant increase in the number of airports also, because they, when it comes to creating India, making India into a hub, they also want to ensure that there is enough penetration within India to smaller markets. We know that eh, the airports, they more than doubled over the past decade. So this is expected to continue, and I think what with Naidu saying that he wants to make make air travel more accessible to common man, that is of course a more positive. That is also a positive development for the industry players, because that means that they can reach out. They have that. If the government is supporting them in reaching out to that user base, that audience, then they'll be more, there'll be more demand if air travel is accessible to the common man. The only thing is, of course, Naidu also acknowledges that the airfares are deregulated in India, so it works on a demand and supply basis. So it's a whole thing on figuring out how he will work on getting those airfares down. So he'll be meeting a lot of industry players and a lot of stakeholders to see how that can be worked out. But that's something that we'll only get to know as things proceed on, whether it'll be done by increasing the, I mean, helping the industry increase the supply, or um, I think increasing the supply is pretty much the only option right now to bring down the airfares. If I mean, I hope they don't cap the airfares at this point, because that's what happened during COVID, and we saw what happened to the airlines then. So I think so far right now it's a very positive sentiment at this moment. But then we will need to wait maybe till the budget comes out in a few weeks, and then we see how the government is performing in the first 100 days.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think that capping of airfares is going to be there. I mean, COVID was an unprecedented
Yeah,
situation,
I
and
don't.
unprecedented
Yes,
situation calls for such measures. But I don't think that's going to happen. But I
of
would
course.
be keen to see how he plans to do that, like you mentioned, because
Yes.
India is an underpenetrated market, and of course, we the supply is less, but then we also have one of the biggest aircraft orders in aviation history. So
Mm-hmm.
it would be interesting to see how that pans out. And as for stuff like hotel industry getting hotels getting the industry status. I mean, like, I've been hearing about this ever since I started journalism, which is quite a long time ago. So yeah, it would be
Yeah.
interesting to see how that happens. I mean, like,
It's,
of course, tourism.
I think it's a keeping your fingers crossed year
Yeah,
after
and
year
then
situation
of
at
course,
this point.
I mean, the whole incredible India is there, but India needs to, of course, understand that every other country is looking at tourism in a very competitive manner. Like, so we
Yes.
need to do something more, and the amount of inbound tourists that, of course, we have fantastic numbers for domestic tourists, but if you need to bring in tourism dollars, you need to bring in international tourists as well. So I hope there is more clarity on tourism, and I hope that things move in the right direction. And with this positive
Yeah.
note, I would like to end our podcast today. Thank you very much, Bulbul, for this. It was a pleasure, as always, talking to
Thank you
you.
too.
And I can't wait to see what we are going to discuss next week. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And don't forget to subscribe to us from your listening app. Thank you very much.
This has been the Skift India Travel Podcast. Thank you for listening.